Everyone thought she was just another face in the crowd, another name lost in the noise. They didn't see her. They didn't know her. Have you ever wondered what someone is capable of when the world refuses to see them? Tonight, the city would learn that some faces carry secrets no one can ignore. Back to the present. The rain fell in torrents, hammering the cracked streets with relentless rhythm. Steam curled from the grates like restless ghosts, and the flickering glow of broken streetlights painted shadows that moved as if alive. She walked through it all, hood drawn, shoulders straight, footsteps measured, each one deliberate, each one unseen. To anyone else, she was nothing. Just another face in a city that forgot people as quickly as it noticed them. But appearances are deceptive. Shadows, even the quietest, have weight. And some carry secrets no one can imagine. She had mastered invisibility. Not by chance, not by accident, but by necessity. Every glance she avoided, every smile she withheld, every word left unsaid was a tool, sharpened over years of careful practice. The world dismissed her, underestimated her, ignored her, and she let them. But tonight, those who had looked past her would see only the consequences of that oversight. By day, she blended in seamlessly. A secretary, a maid, a low-profile employee, roles that demanded little attention, that required only obedience. And in her invisibility, she learned everything. The way people whispered, the patterns of behavior, the subtle betrayals that others thought unnoticed. A spilled coffee, a misplaced document, a shrug at an insult, they believed those moments were trivial. But she remembered them all, storing each slight, each sneer, like firewood for a storm that had yet to come. She moved through the office like a ghost. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, humming faintly. Papers lay in haphazard piles, the air smelled faintly of burnt coffee. Colleagues chatted, laughed, gossiped, oblivious. Her boss waved her off without a word. The world told her she was small, unremarkable, invisible. And yet, in that invisibility, she thrived. For no one notices a shadow until it strikes. Her phone vibrated softly in her pocket. She glanced at it, nothing but a cryptic message. No sender, no explanation, just a string of numbers and symbols. The message might have meant nothing to anyone else. To her, it was a summons. A whisper from the shadows, calling her to step out of anonymity and into a world she had been trained, unknowingly, to dominate. She left the building and entered the night. The city breathed around her, wet and restless, alive with unseen eyes. A figure lingered in the distance, shifting from shadow to shadow. She sensed it, not with her eyes, but with instinct, a sixth sense honed from years of reading people before they even spoke. Someone followed her. Who do you think really notices her, or is she truly invisible? Someone watched. Perhaps a friend, perhaps a foe, perhaps neither. And all the while, the rain masked the sound of her own heartbeat, though she felt it, steady and controlled, counting the moments to what was coming. Trust was a rare commodity in her life. Friends might betray. Mentors might mislead. Lovers might falter when loyalty mattered most. And she had learned, early, to measure trust like a weapon, carefully, cautiously, sparingly. The city was a chessboard, and she had been overlooked for far too long. But in every game, patience becomes the deadliest piece, and tonight, her patience was ready to strike. Tell me, who do you think is really loyal, her friend, or someone else hiding in the shadows? She remembered all the times she had been underestimated. The sneers, the dismissals, the wrongful accusations, moments that would have crushed anyone else. To her, they were lessons. Each slight a sharpening stone. Each insult a spark. And now, the sparks were catching. A storm was rising, one that would sweep the city with a force no one anticipated. Somewhere along the alley, a shadow shifted. She felt it, a movement in her periphery, a disturbance in the rhythm of the night. But she did not flinch. Calm, measured, prepared, every step forward was an act of defiance against the world that thought it could ignore her. Every breath was a claim on the power she had yet to reveal. Then she felt it, a weight in her pocket. A small metallic key, etched with symbols that seemed to hum faintly under her fingers. Ordinary to the untrained eye. Extraordinary to hers. Some keys unlock doors. Some unlock destinies. And this one was hers. Destiny had arrived. The city continued to move around her, unaware of the quiet storm walking among them. Footsteps echoed on wet streets, shadows flickered, secrets whispered in corners. And she walked on. Invisible. Unnoticed. Deadly. Waiting for the moment when the world would finally understand that some faces are never what they seem, and some people carry a weight no one ever expects. And tonight, the first move in a game no one else knew they were playing had begun. The pieces were set, the board alive with tension, and she, unseen, underestimated, unstoppable, was ready to make the first strike. Fade out. Unfolding the hidden world. The city slept uneasily, unaware that beneath its ordinary hum, a storm was forming. Somewhere in a room dimly lit by a single swinging bulb, plans were being made, alliances whispered, and threats calculated with meticulous care. He, the man who ruled this hidden world, did not yet know the true weight that walked the streets unnoticed, the shadow he dismissed with every glance. He believed power was measured in fear, in guns, in loyalty bought with bribes and blood. He was wrong. The antagonist, a figure cloaked in authority and menace, moved through his inner sanctum with calculated ease. Encrypted messages flashed across screens. Shadows moved along walls, silent couriers delivering coded secrets. Yet even in this room of power, even in this controlled chaos, there was one person who did not belong in his calculations. A name not on his radar. A life he considered irrelevant. And in underestimating her, he sowed the seeds of his own undoing. The world had taught her to observe, to listen, to calculate the movements of those who believed themselves untouchable. And now, as she navigated the rain-slicked streets, she was already 2 steps ahead of the forces assembling against her. Every shadow that passed, every whisper that floated through the alleys, every flicker of light on a windowpane became part of a pattern she deciphered with ease. The city itself seemed to bend to her awareness. She was no longer invisible, she was deliberate. Every gesture, every glance, every silence was a chess move. And the players, unaware of her presence, were beginning to fall into place. The key she carried burned in her pocket, a silent reminder that doors exist for those ready to open them, and destinies for those daring enough to claim them. Somewhere far above the city, in offices lined with dark wood and screens flickering like the heartbeat of a hidden machine, decisions were being made about lives she had never shown her face to. But she had been preparing for this. Every lesson in patience, every insult endured, every betrayal catalogued, it all led to this night. And tonight, the game would begin. Small twists and suspense. She entered a building, her presence unnoticed, though the air seemed to thrum with potential danger. Every corridor was a threat of possibility, every shadow a potential adversary. And yet, she moved as if she belonged, though belonging was precisely what she had never been granted. Her mind, sharp and calculating, mapped each step, each door, each sound. The footsteps behind her were faint but deliberate, almost synchronized with her own. Someone or multiple someones were watching, measuring, waiting. And she let them. Let them think the prey was unaware, unprepared. Let them believe she could be caught. Then the first twist of the night arrived like a whisper. A minor character in the grand narrative, a low-level associate of the antagonist, made a move that seemed insignificant to the untrained eye. But she noticed it. A glance held too long, a hand brushing a pocket nervously, a shadow lingering on a wall. The world often hides its truths in the smallest of actions. And she read them all, piecing together a danger that others would not see until it struck. Tell me. Did you see the hidden clues she's been noticing all along? Her mentor's cryptic advice returned to her mind, words repeated like a mantra, the eye sees only what the heart allows it to see. Trust nothing. Assume nothing. And never be afraid to claim the power they think you do not possess. She followed the rhythm of the city, letting instinct guide her. The first confrontation would come, and it would not be with guns or threats alone, but with minds. With manipulation. With Anticipation. In a narrow hallway, she encountered a man who had been trailing her. His appearance was casual, but his eyes betrayed calculation. And yet, as he lunged with a weapon concealed beneath his coat, she moved with such fluid precision that the attack was neutralized before it could even register as danger. And in that moment, the audience glimpsed her skill. But they did not yet know its full measure. She was more than she seemed, and the game was only beginning. Mid-story twist. The night deepened. Somewhere, the antagonist's plan was unraveling in ways he could not anticipate. He had underestimated the quiet observer, the ordinary woman who carried the weight of hidden power like a cloak. And that underestimation, so common, would be his undoing. She reached a room lit only by the faint glow of a single monitor. Messages flickered across the screen, revealing secrets, alliances, betrayals. She accessed them with ease, the code bending to her knowledge. And then came the revelation: someone presumed guilty, someone the antagonist believed was a traitor, was in fact loyal. And someone trusted implicitly was a spy, feeding him information, shaping the battlefield in ways no one had foreseen. The layers of deception were thicker than any weapon in the city, and she was seeing every move. Her pulse remained steady. Calm. Controlled. And yet, beneath the surface, anticipation roared. Every heartbeat counted down to the moment of confrontation. Every shadow could hide an ally or an enemy. And with each revelation, the audience's perception shifted. What they believed to be true, the identity of the guilty, the loyal, the weak, was already being rewritten in the dark, unseen by those who thought themselves in control. Then the first true twist of the night arrived. A figure from her past, someone presumed absent, someone thought destroyed, appeared unexpectedly, an ally or perhaps a new threat. Their motives, unclear. Their loyalty, a question mark. And in that instant, the world tilted. The audience, like the antagonist, could not know what was coming next. And neither could she, fully. For even in her mastery, there were unknowns. The game was no longer about survival, it was about uncovering truth amid deception, about moving unseen while the world assumed they understood her every step. And as the rain continued outside, the city's pulse echoed the tension inside her mind. Every shadow, every whisper, every subtle betrayal would lead to a reckoning. And by the end of this night, no one ally, enemy, or observer would look at her the same way again. She was no longer just a face in the crowd. She was a force, invisible yet undeniable, quiet yet lethal, and the night was only beginning to reveal the power she had long concealed. Major confrontations. The room was silent, save for the hum of the fluorescent lights that flickered intermittently, casting shadows that seemed to move with a life of their own. She stepped inside, her movements deliberate, calculated, as if every step had been rehearsed 1,000 times. And there he was. The man who thought he controlled everything. The antagonist, seated behind a polished desk, eyes sharp, calculating, a predator confident in his superiority. But tonight, he would learn that power is never absolute, and appearances are the most dangerous lie of all. Their eyes met. No words were spoken at first. Just the weight of recognition, of history, of countless misjudgments finally colliding. He underestimated her because of her ordinary life, because he believed that invisibility equaled weakness. But strength often hides behind the quietest faces. And she had waited for this moment. She spoke first, her voice calm, almost serene, yet layered with authority. Every word was a move on a chessboard, every pause a strategy, every glance a test of his composure. He responded with measured confidence, a smile that did not reach his eyes, a tone meant to intimidate. Yet even as he spoke, subtle cracks appeared, cracks only someone like her could detect, cracks in his carefully maintained facade. Behind them, shadows shifted. Allies and enemies lingered unseen, their loyalties uncertain. A friend who had walked beside her through the early trials now made a sudden, unexpected move either to betray or to save. The air was thick with tension, every heartbeat amplified by the fear of the unknown. The city outside seemed to pause, as if holding its breath, echoing her own anticipation. And then the countdown began, not of seconds, but of inevitabilities. Somewhere in the building, a threat loomed, an assassination in motion, a corruption about to be exposed, a life hanging by a thread. Every choice she made, every calculated risk, mattered. The stakes had never been higher. And with each passing moment, the antagonist's confidence began to erode, though he could not yet place the source of his unease. Every glance she cast, every word she uttered, was a test of his perception. Could he see the truth hidden behind her calm expression? Could he predict the moves of someone whose life had been spent in shadows, whose mind had catalogued every betrayal, every misjudgment, every secret? The audience could feel it, the tension building, the suspense thickening, the inevitability of revelation drawing closer with every passing heartbeat. Climactic twists. And then, with a single, decisive motion, the mask fell away. The protagonist's true identity, long concealed, was revealed in full. She was not just a shadow, not just a bystander, not just a woman dismissed by the world. She was the mastermind. The force no one had anticipated. The architect of the chaos that had quietly spread through the city's veins. Every move, every subtle act, every unnoticed intervention had been calculated to bring this moment to fruition. The antagonist realized too late that the game had always been hers to control. The audience, like the characters in the room, saw it unfold. She outsmarted him at every turn, anticipating his moves, predicting his reactions, turning his own strategies against him. The power that had been invisible to all now shone in stark relief, undeniable and unstoppable. And then came the layered twist, a betrayal hidden in plain sight. Someone the audience had trusted, someone who had seemed steadfast, revealed themselves as a double agent, feeding information to the antagonist while pretending loyalty. The shock rippled through the narrative, rewriting everything the audience thought they knew. And yet, she adapted, as she always did, using the betrayal to her advantage, turning deception into a weapon. Even as triumph began to settle, a new tension emerged. The antagonist, thought defeated, stirred. A faint smirk, a twitch of muscle, a shadow that lingered just beyond the edge of the light. He was not finished. The audience was left with a question burning in their minds: was this truly the end, or merely a pause before a deeper, darker reckoning? And in the quiet aftermath, her mind raced, already planning, already calculating the next steps. The city itself seemed to hum in anticipation, as if aware that the storm had only begun. And as the narration lingers on this moment, the audience is drawn into the suspense, left to wonder, to speculate, to imagine, who could she trust next? What threat would rise from the shadows? And how far would she go to ensure that no one ever underestimates her again? Did you see it coming? The master revealed, the betrayal exposed, the antagonist's vulnerability laid bare? No. And that is the point. In a city built on secrets, in a world that judges by appearances, nothing is as it seems. And sometimes, the quietest face carries the deadliest power. Climax. The city held its breath. Every shadow seemed sharper, every sound more resonant. She stepped into the room where it all converged, the place where plans, betrayals, and secrets collided. The antagonist, still breathing, still plotting, looked up with that familiar smirk, the one that had once meant control. But control was no longer his. Not tonight. Her movements were deliberate, precise, almost lyrical in their intensity. Every step a calculated strike, every gesture a command over the environment. The room became a battlefield of shadows, her presence bending the very air around her. The fight was not only physical, but mental, psychological, strategic. She anticipated every feint, every tactic, every desperate maneuver. Slow-motion flashes captured her precision, the flick of a hand disarming an opponent, a glance that unmasked deception, the tilt of her body avoiding danger that would have been fatal to any other. Orchestral music swelled in her mind's eye, rising with the tempo of her mastery. Justice intertwined with vengeance, skill tempered by strategy. And then, the final revelation, a seemingly minor figure, overlooked for most of the night, a low-level observer, a quiet messenger, had been the key all along. Every small clue, every coded signal, every subtle warning had come from them. The threads of influence that had guided her were invisible to all but her. What seemed trivial had been pivotal. The city's fate had depended on a whisper, and she had heard it. The antagonist realized, in a heartbeat too late, that every move he had made, every assumption he had relied on, had been anticipated. He was cornered not by brute force alone, but by intellect, preparation, and a power he had never imagined existed in someone he dismissed as ordinary. Triumph was hers, undeniable, complete, but tempered by the realization that the game of shadows never truly ends. If you had the power to strike unseen, would you choose justice, revenge, or both? Or will you let it go of the hatred? The room quieted. The city outside resumed its restless hum, oblivious to the storm that had passed beneath its streets. She stood, surveying the aftermath, the antagonist neutralized, threats dispersed, truths revealed, and yet mysteries still lingering in the corners. Justice had been served, but only in the way she understood it, precise, deliberate, unseen to most, and absolute. Her identity, revealed in moments of crisis, was now both a weapon and a shield. Allies realigned, betrayals remembered, lessons etched in silence. The city might never know her name, but it would feel the weight of her presence. And she had survived. Not by luck. Not by chance. But by the skill, patience, and vision she had cultivated for a lifetime. And yet, the narrative was not complete. Somewhere, a shadow lingered, an unseen threat, a whisper in the dark, a new game beginning. The antagonist may have fallen, but the story of power, deception, and hidden mastery continued. She turned away, the key still in her hand, eyes sharp, mind calculating. The world would not see her coming again, but it would inevitably feel her impact. What would you do if you were in her shoes? How far would you go when the world refuses to see your strength? The choices, the stakes, the shadows, they are yours to imagine. And perhaps, the next chapter is already waiting, hidden just beyond the corner of vision, in the spaces no one dares to look. The night falls again. Streets glisten with rain, shadows stretch across walls, and the city breathes in quiet tension. She vanishes into the darkness, leaving only echoes of footsteps, whispers of power, and a story that refuses to end. If you watched closely, you saw the choices, the twists, the betrayals, the triumphs. And if you want more, if you want to follow the path of shadows, remember to like, share, and subscribe. For the story is far from over, and the face behind the mask will return. And as the screen fades, a hint, a flicker of movement in an alley, a shadow unseen, a new presence waiting. The next challenge is coming, and only those who pay attention will be ready. Do you think the story is truly over, or is this only the beginning?